Today I'm going to be talking about how to provide enrichment for your leopard gecko. So it's important that you provide enrichment for your leopard gecko because if you do not, they probably are gonna kind of be bored with their enclosure and might not come out of their hides very often, and they might not be very happy and might not really want you to handle them that much, and they might be kind of stressed out if you do not provide very much enrichment for them. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today. I'm going to be talking about 10 ways to provide enrichment for your leopard gecko. So the first one is to add climbing decor to your leopard gecko's enclosure. You can add things like driftwood, rocks, cork bark, hammocks, and even like reptile backgrounds that have ledges that they can climb on. And they definitely can make use of that vertical space. And a lot of leopard geckos will like to climb. Even though they don't have sticky pads on their toes like most geckos, a lot of leopard geckos will like to climb around their enclosure and on decor that you put in there. And it really can be enriching for your leopard gecko, and it might encourage them to come out of their hides more. So the next one is plants. So these can be live or fake, but keep in mind live plants will need to be watered, and they also will need to have an LED bulb to stay alive, and you also probably will need to have a soil-based substrate in your leopard gecko's enclosure to have live plants. But fake plants can also work, and they also can mimic the plants that are in your leopard gecko's natural habitat, and they also can make your enclosure look really great. So the next one is to introduce a variety of different feeder insects. So there are a lot of different kinds of feeder insects out there, including crickets, mealworms, superworms, doobie roaches, silkworms, waxworms, butterworms, etc. And it's good to introduce a better variety of feeder insects because they have a good variety in the wild, and they will probably be more enthusiastic about eating if you give them a better variety. And you should try to stay away from feeding too many very fatty insects like waxworms or butterworms, and make sure not to feed your leopard gecko too much because that can lead to obesity. But otherwise, it's really great if you can have a good variety of different kinds of feeder insects. The next one is using loose substrate. So this is kind of controversial because a lot of people say you should never use loose substrate in your leopard gecko's enclosure, but personally I think it's very beneficial to them, and a lot of leopard geckos do like to dig, which can be very enriching for them, and it also is more similar to their natural habitat because they have loose ground in their natural habitat. And yeah, it can be very enriching for them to have loose substrate, and as long as you pick a good one, it can be very good for them to have that. And I definitely would recommend you use loose substrate in your leopard gecko's enclosure. So the next one is going bioactive. So this is basically when you have a cleanup crew consisting of isopods, springtails, and even mealworms or superworms. And these will basically clean up the enclosure for you, and you won't really have to clean it. And usually when you have a bioactive enclosure, you have loose substrate and a very naturalistic enclosure, usually with live plants. And this can be very enriching for your leopard gecko because usually it mimics their natural habitat, and it can be very good for them to have something similar to their natural habitat. And I definitely would recommend going bioactive if you can. The next one is adding more hides. So in general, leopard geckos should have at least 3 hides, but adding even more can be really good for them because they like to hide in rock crevices in the wild, and they probably will be hiding for a lot of the day, and adding more hides can make your leopard gecko feel more secure and also can be enriching for them because they have more places to go. So the next one is using a halogen lamp or a deep heat projector. So I talked about this in my last video. Halogen lamps and deep heat projectors are both very good for your leopard gecko and can be very enriching since they will encourage your leopard gecko to bask more. And I talked about this in my last video, and I definitely would recommend these kinds of heating because they're probably the best out there and can be very enriching for your leopard gecko. So the next one is UVB lighting. So a lot of people say you don't need UVB lighting for leopard gecko since they are crepuscular, but I think it is really beneficial for them to have that, and it is really good for them, and it closely mimics the rays from the sun, and it's very enriching for them to have UVB lighting in their enclosure. Even though they don't necessarily need it, it is very good for them to have that. So the next one is a larger enclosure. So while some people say that you shouldn't have an enclosure larger than 20 gallons for a leopard gecko, I think it is very good for them to have an enclosure bigger than that. I think bigger is better, and as long as you have a lot of decor in the enclosure and it's not like empty, then they can really make use of that space and it can be really enriching and good for them. So the last one is having a temperature drop at night. So in the wild, leopard geckos live in rocky, arid regions, and usually the temperature will drop, sometimes very drastically, at night, and having a temperature drop at night can be very good for them because it mimics what happens in the wild, and it can even get down to the 60s at night, and you can just turn off all their heating equipment because it's good for it to be colder for them at night because that's what happens in their natural habitat. So yeah, I think that's about it, guys, and these might not be the only ways to provide enrichment for your leopard gecko, but I hope this helps you, and as always, if you have any questions or anything you want to say, make sure to leave it in the comment section below, and make sure to like this video, and if you aren't subscribed already, don't forget to push that button and push the bell to get notified when I post a new video, and yeah, bye guys!